Let me understand the difference between what you're talking about. What's acceptable, that like what is the risk? You're talking about what are we doing? That different calculations for necessity for risk. Okay, so it's more a reflection of passion. That's valuable. That makes sense. Thank you. So it's a cash flow. Where's my cash? Yeah, I also understand why they do it this way. Are we properly investing in this trade? That's what they're trying to do. Like I said, it's that balance of these rates and
All right, folks, welcome
no profit.
to the May 15th
Too much of that.
Please call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mayor Brooke?
Present?
Deputy Mayor Dexter? Here. Councilmember French?
Present.
Councilmember Kidd? Here. Councilmember Meredith?
Here.
Councilmember Moran?
Present.
Councilmember Showman Warren? Manager McKee?
Here.
Attorney Floyd?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've got the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a proclamation today. So is the whole group coming up? Come on up. This is for the Juan de Fuca Foundation. Come on up. Welcome, welcome you all. So we have a proclamation in recognition of Juan de Fuca Foundation. And it reads, whereas art makes the world a more beautiful, enriching place and is uplifting to the human spirit, and whereas experiencing art and culture from around the world is a powerful tool for bridging differences and demonstrating that we all share a common humanity, and whereas studies show that early exposure to the arts helps build creativity and self-esteem in youth and continues to benefit people of all ages, and whereas the Juan de Fuca Foundation presents an annual performing arts multi-stage festival held over 4 days during Memorial Weekend, which has grown into one of the great community festivals on the West Coast. And whereas the Juan de Fuca Foundation presents an average of 14 concerts throughout the year, significant productions of quality and magnitude that would be special events in a big city. And whereas the Juan de Fuca Foundation develops and offers art programs for youth, including master classes, youth concerts, drama in the schools, summer art camp, and more. Now, therefore, I, Sissy Brooke, Mayor, on behalf of the City Council of Port Angeles, do hereby recognize the Juan de Fuca Foundation's 25-year anniversary of bringing extraordinary world-class performing arts and culture to the City of Port Angeles. Congratulations on this great milestone.
Well, actually, we were going to sing an original song about the Juan de Fuca Festival. We've been working on it out in the lobby.
Absolutely. Please go ahead. You guys need a mic?
Or for him.
Yeah, we don't put ours up.
And some of you have lyrics, so feel free to sing along.
We're all going to sing along, right?
you can find a certain grace. It's so, so pretty. The mountains trace the beauty and the gritty. So grab yourself a taste at the Juan de Fuca Festival. There's a little show, it's a real enchanter. The people in the know, they find their inner dancer. It's all about the flow, it's not about the answer. So do the do-si-do at the Juan de Fuca Festival. Wow, well, you guys sound great. The whole world is a stage, a vision from afar. Everyone's an actor, so love the one you are. The curtains on the rise, standing at the bar. Be who you wanna be, because you are a star. Don't hesitate, get back to the garden. Cast your gaze on the gate, find your inner stardom. So hurry, don't be late. Everybody gets a party. We're wiping clean the slate at the Juan de Fuca Festival. Celebrations all around, forget about tomorrow. Before we make a frown, put away your sorrows. You can hear that joyful sound, drowning in the sorrows. 'Cause everyone's a clown at the Juan de Fuca Festival. Everyone's a clown at the Juan de Fuca Festival.
So much. This was the first act of the Juan de Fuca Festival, guys. So, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, and we'll see you all at the festival next week.
I hope so. Well done.
Need help here?
All right, that was wonderful. So, now on to the public comment period of the meeting. So, I've got a list here in front of me. So, the first one to sign up is Beth Witters.
I'm not familiar with this microphone, so. Beth Witters, 136 East 8th Street, PND 122. I am the current secretary of the Port Angeles Downtown Association and serve on the promotions committee as well as the Arts and Drafts Street Vendor Committee. This evening, I'd like to present to the City Council bags which the Downtown Association handed out at the fountain last weekend in conjunction with the Downtown Fair. That's Mother's Day. The bags serve as a kickoff reminder to downtown shoppers about the change in the ordinance, which will take effect soon. The bags were printed locally downtown, funded through a sponsorship from the Lower Hillwalk Casino, and have a list of all the events the Port Angeles Downtown Association sponsors during the year. The association is made up of unpaid volunteers from the downtown business community who spend many hours planning and preparing for events that encourage shopping, as well as bringing residents of Port Angeles downtown for community celebrations such as Halloween and the annual tree lighting. Other committees include design, who are currently working on restoring outside art, placing banners downtown, and adding to the visual appeal. The Downtown Association consults regularly on a regular basis with the city as we put on these events, and we appreciate having Mike French and Allison Berkey attending our monthly meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Next is Susan Hilgren.
Susan Hilgren, 12 Pierce Road. Nathan, I'm going to be doing Chinese water torture on you, so I'm just going to keep coming back until we get our answers. We still need to figure out how to do trash containers so our homeless have a place to put their trash. They need bathrooms. I understand that Serenity House is going to try and put one over by Tempest, and I offered to reward somebody to keep it clean all the time, so it will work. We're going to need Sharps containers around town. I appreciate the council trying to find ways to make the RVs work, because we, like the rest of the United States, are dealing with homeless. And I actually heard someone say today, he was at Maui, and they say that the Big Island is sending their homeless to them. So we're not the only one feeling that the homeless are coming in. So I really would like some cultural awareness for some of the city and county employees. They've got some hate groups on Facebook, and some of your employees are really making some really inappropriate comments. It's not okay. It really isn't. Somebody needs to take a stand and say, you know what, if you're an employee, and that should go for the schools, you know, if you're a teacher and things like that, we really need to be careful what we're saying out there. It's just not, that's not who we are. That's not what we want to be. And speaking of hating on the homeless, I had a client talk to me yesterday, and some trucks and cars were trying to run him down. Now, he looks kind of like a gang member. He looks Spanish, and he's got tattoos and stuff, but that doesn't give anybody the right to scare anybody. So it's alive and well still out there in our community. I know we want to think that people aren't doing it, but they are. And so I just need people to be aware of that. And we just need to keep working. We need to keep working on our homeless. Whether you have funding or not, we have to find a way to fix this. And again, I talked about the volunteerism. We're just going to have to get those volunteers. Most of us as nonprofits use those volunteers, and you as a city can. We can fix this. It doesn't have to be about money. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bob Veerland.
I apologize, but I'm just going to jump in and say, please screenshot anything you see on Facebook that is an issue in terms of hate speech. One of those Facebook groups was shut down as a hate group, and I don't want to see us participating in that or our staff participating in that. So please keep that inside it.
Go ahead.
Bob Vreeland, 520 East 10th Street. Gee, if I'd known about the festivities, maybe I'd brought my harmonica. No, you shouldn't have, Bob. Beat you to it. Last month I was here and planted the seed for the 100% clean energy Port Angeles. And this month I'm here to water it. About a week and a half ago, I was visiting with Mayor Bush at the Saturday market, and she said, why don't you look for some climate action plan examples you could provide some information for me. So you may be sorry you asked me to do this. I've come up with two. One is the Port Townsend Jefferson County, and that's more complex than you're going to need here for Port Angeles, because Clallam County actually has a climate action plan, but they've let it go fallow and it's growing weeds now. We're trying to get it reestablished. But it's a good example of the only climate action plan on the North Olympic Peninsula. I found another one, Shoreline's climate action plan, that I think might be more appropriate. And in the process of finding these plans, I stumbled on a tremendous resource for climate action plans and exchanging information. That's called CAKE, Climate Action Knowledge Exchange. It's cakex.org. And so I went through the some 2,000 pieces of information in there and copied cover pages of things that I thought might be useful to you. So I have all the information here, just give it to you now.
Thank you. One nighttime reading, I see.
Oh, and I noticed that Deputy Mayor Dexter is on crutches, so whatever you did to end up on those crutches, don't do it again. I often forget that.
Do my best.
Thank you, Bob. All right, Ingrid Carmine.
Hi, I'm Ingrid Carmine, giving you part 3. I live at 316 South Cherry here in Port Angeles. Thank you, Mayor, and the City Council for allowing me to present a little more on housing for the homeless. I have a friend in California who purchased an inexpensive 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. This is now home for the formerly homeless. It has a large backyard, most of which is a vegetable garden, but there's space for tents and other shelters for the homeless. The home is self-ruled and managed by a formerly homeless woman. Many of those who have lived there were able to stabilize their lives and have graduated on to jobs in their own apartments. On the board that runs this small village is a nationally known, very creative architect who has designed shelters and villages for the homeless. The shelters cost around $5,000 each. He believes living in beautiful surroundings lessens the tendency towards violence. Check out Eco Village Fresno for more information on these projects. My friend, the one who purchased the house, mentioned an internet site called the $300 House Challenge. Most of these houses are for third world countries and would not work here. However, there were a couple that caught my eye. One was a shelter made of bricks of the lowest grade plastics, like plastic bags and styrofoam. These bricks were the plastic and they were compressed by a $300 compressor and held together with wire. One thing that impressed me was that these bricks, unlike adobe or clay, seemed to be light enough that they wouldn't kill somebody in an earthquake. Another shelter was a small Buckminster Fuller-type dome, which could be covered with canvas, scraps of lumber, or found objects. I also saw a village in Seattle that had tents, dorms for men and women, porta potties, porta sinks, and was also self-ruled. I can imagine that some of you are wondering how one can survive without a bathroom a few feet from your own bedroom. Well, I was in the Peace Corps, and I can tell you a bucket with a lid works very well. In Port Angeles, we need space for several small villages for those with different lifestyles, each self-ruled. This doesn't need to be expensive. With community kitchens, bathrooms, and showers, the cost can be held down significantly. To all of you, I would again like to say that when you see the homeless, introduce yourself. Get to know them, listen to them, see the humanity in them. They will probably be more wary of you than you are of them. But remember, you represent them.
Thank you. So that is all who have signed up. Anybody who would like to speak, please come to the mic and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Steve Hopkins. I reside at 1405A South C Street in Port Angeles. I'm here on behalf of my role as the Planning and Operations Manager at Column Transit. I just wanted to let Council know of our 7th grade transit education program, which our Column Transit System Board enacted earlier this year. We are taking buses and transit operators out throughout the county to provide 7th graders the opportunity to learn about how transit works as a part of its community, as part of the social studies curriculum. We're teaching all of the 7th graders in the county how to load a bike onto a bus bike rack, how to plan a transit trip, how to pay for a transit trip, and so on. And I wanted to publicly thank the staff at Stevens Middle School who invited us into the school. We were able to meet with all 240 of the 7th graders at Stevens, and each of the students received a free transit pass that's good through the end of the calendar year. So we're very excited about that program. Today we were in Nia Bay, last week Clallam Bay, and we've already seen a double-digit increase in youth ridership. So we're very excited.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that great news. And
John Ralston, P.O. Box 898, Port Angeles. I've made these comments previously, but I think only at the think tank, so they're not on the record. One, I think the think tanks should be recorded. Again, I'm saying it for the public that can't attend, so they can listen to it. And as a good example for last week, I believe there were at least 2 city council people that were unable to attend. It would also benefit them as to should they choose to listen to it. Second item, I want to go on the record. I know that some of the city staff, it is my opinion that they are overwhelmed with a lot of work with regards to the comp plan. I think a comp plan that we are mandated, I believe by the state every 10 years to review is getting, and I believe the document as it is right now is at least a B+ or an A grade document. Could there be improvements made to it? Sure. Everything that the city does, everything that I do, things could be improved. But I think that the time that our staff is putting into it can be spent more wisely elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak to council on any item whatsoever? Now's the time to do it. All right. I guess seeing none, we will close the public comment period and go to late items. Any late items? Well, I've got one. I wanted to add some of the summary of the think tanks and think ideas that we're going to bring up to the agenda. So I was going to add it as number 4 on other considerations. Does that sound okay for everybody?
Yeah, and maybe we could also talk a little bit about procedure
Okay.
with her.
Okay, sounds good. I will add that procedure. And then anything else?
There's a late item for letter of support for the Puget Sound Day on the Hill, and I guess that would go under other considerations as well.
Letter on the Hill?
It's a letter of support for the Puget Sound Day on the Hill. I can explain it when we get to that item.
Is that okay, Ed?
I didn't understand what.
So it's a letter of support for the Puget Sound that he's going to explain for us to have a letter of support. Okay. And then, anything else on the late item, staff?
Nothing, the one that we were going to bring up had already been brought up, so we're good.
Okay, great. And so we have, yeah, we're going to get the consent agenda done. So let me read the consent agenda. It's a city council minutes of May 1st, 2018. Expenditure report from April 21st to May 4th, 2018 on the amount of $3,280,000 to $80,154.18. Whitlow Hofman quiet title action. Margaret Briggs boundary line agreement, and the addition of Craig Avenue reconstruction project to the CFP. Any discussion on it?
Well, I think I'd like to pull item 3 and item 4, the two property ones.
Anybody?
Not that I want to pull it, but I would just like to make a comment on the expenditure report. Again, Tess was extremely helpful in understanding the reason that the expenditure report is higher this time is because of utility payments, and it's something that we really need to pay attention to, and also that the fact that, again, Tess pointed out that this expenditure report is for all departments, not just the general fund. And so sometimes when you look at that number, you think that's coming out of the general fund, it could be scary, but it's all departments reporting. So again, thank you, Tess, for helping me with that again.
I was just going to say maybe what Mike was going to say about the, glad to see the Craig Avenue reconstruction added to the CFP. When Mike and I were up at the high school, there were 2 students who raised their hand and asked, how can we get our street fixed with this new transportation benefit district? And they happen to live on Craig Avenue. So it will be great for them to see that they had a need and it's being addressed.
And I also have questions on that project, so I don't know if you want to pull it, but,
Well, if it's a
because
simple
I don't have a
question.
problem with it being added to the CFP, I just have questions on the project.
Sure, you can ask them now.
So, you know, I drove on Craig Avenue just a few days ago. I don't know if anybody else has recently. I used to live there in college. Over a decade ago, I lived in an apartment complex over. So I was just wondering, what's the extent of the paving that's going to be happening on Craig Avenue? Because it looked like the project was about the water mains underneath, correct?
The water main is not underneath the road, it's off the side.
The side.
The paving will be from a quarter all the way in, to dead end there.
Right, so it's just that portion east of Porter mainly that's getting the pavement?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and that's the part that's really in the worst shape, so I'm happy to hear.
That's the part that was damaged as a result of that 20-inch water main break.
Yeah.
And I did have a question about that one specifically too, is, you know, what does that leave in our reserve funds? Because I know some of the reserve funds were used for this. Do you know by any chance what are?
It's from the capital reserve, set aside from water. There's 84,000 in the water capital, and there was 15.5 from the stormwater. that is being transferred in to complete this project. The road damage was caused by the water main break, so that allows us to use water utility funds, capital funds for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, so in that case, let me read this again. So the consent agenda, the City Council minutes from May 1st, 2018, expenditure report from April 21st to May 4th, in the amount of $3,280,155.18, and then the addition of Craig Avenue Reconstruction Project to CFP.
I move that, right?
Second.
Okay, so we got a motion on the table and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the question, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. All right. So that passes unanimously, and so let's do number 3. The Whitmore Hofman quiet title action and the Margaret Discovery. So what are your questions on?
I'd like some more background information on this. How long have the current property owners owned the property? Why was this house built on the alley and not on the parcels as it should have been? I need to know more information before considering.
Okay, I will address that, and some of the specific questions I don't know the answer to. I can tell you that with regard to the quiet title action, this relates to property that was platted back in the 1800s, and it was platted before the property was incorporated inside the city, and it has been recognized for quite a while that the monuments, the survey monuments in that area were moved sometime in the 1920s. And so you have an old plat that was, and the house was built there a long time ago. I can't tell you when, but the house was built where, according to the plat, there was an alley. And then there were some questions also about whether the city had any easements or utilities there, and whether we would need to have any. And and of course, the fact that there are those questions regarding the property make it difficult for the property owners to sell the property because there are encumbrances on the title. So this is simply a quiet title action that they have filed to try to clear up some of those problems that date actually back from the late 1800s. The cities, we have checked with the city departments, and as far as we know, there is no city alley in there. We have no interest in having an alley. There are no interest in city utilities, so we have no interest in easements there. So the fact that the purpose of the quiet title action is simply to remove from the paper record any trace of the easements or the alley. That's the purpose of it. And again, the city departments have no interest in having any easements or alley there.
Are we going to then vacate the alley for the adjacent property owners? Because it's, that house is in the middle of this alley.
The property that is subject to this relates to the entire block. So it would, as I understand it, that's the only remaining portion that is in question.
So we've already vacated for the...
As I understand it, the remainder of that has been vacated pursuant to statute.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to authorize the city attorney to sign an agreement order to be filed in the Collin County Superior Court settling the quiet title action or releasing any city ownership in the property.
Second. All right, any further discussion? All right, then we've got a motion on the table and a second. Please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, it is unanimous that that one happens. And now we're next to Margaret Riggs boundary line agreement.
Yeah, this is a similar situation. where again, the survey marker that would have identified the actual survey boundary line between the two properties, the city property and the neighbor's property, that was moved. And so the surveyor is not actually able to establish the original line anymore. But what the property owner has suggested to the city is we simply recognize the line that has been the line recognized in the past. Even though that may or may not be the actual survey line, they will establish a survey line where the property boundary appears to be. That will be recorded, and then henceforth that will be the actual recorded survey.
I really appreciate that this property owner is talking to us before suing us.
Yes.
As opposed to the previous one. That said, I just want to know who hired the surveyor and what was the surveyor's scope of work?
I believe that the city did not hire the surveyor, and so probably the adjoining property owner.
And do we know if the surveyor was,
I can share that is correct, that they did hire the surveyor, but at the same time, city staff did verify the work of the surveyor, and we do have a surveyor in-house who also is very capable of looking at those issues, and we looked at it diligently and we feel it is appropriate.
and we have no monuments to mark a property line other than what's become the apparent property line between the properties?
Not that I'm aware of.
And I guess for me, my only question on this one was sort of, so did the city win or lose property, or how did, I mean, I know we couldn't quite determine the line, but where we guesstimate the line to be, was this in our favor or against our favor?
As far as I can tell, it's neutral. That is, the line is recognized as being where we have thought the line has always been for the last several decades.
Okay, that's good enough to me. All right, so I need a motion on that one, unless we're done with discussion.
So I'll go ahead and move to authorize the city manager to execute the boundary line agreement and any other documents related to it.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that? It looks like it's unanimous again. All right, now we are on to the public hearing, the capital facilities plan and transportation improvement plan for 2019 to 2024. This will be our first reading.
The capital facilities plan and improvement plan are required by the city's growth management act, and to be included in the city's comprehensive plan. In order to be eligible for some loans and for some grants, although we're not going for loans, the project must be listed in the CFP and the TIP. The long-term planning allows the city to plan for and set aside funds and prioritize projects based on council directives. We are asking the council to oppose public reading of the capital facilities plan and transportation improvement plan, allow public comment, close the public hearing, and conduct the first reading of the resolution to adopt the 2019 through 2024 capital facilities plan. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice with that here. So.
No problem, thank you. Okay, so we shall open this to the public as the public hearing on the capital facilities plan. And so anybody in the audience who would like to speak to council on the capital facilities, please come on up and speak to us about this. I know you guys are really excited about this. All right. So I guess with that enthusiastic response, we we will, I guess, continue this, let me do the reading of the,
Are we gonna have a discussion?
yes, we can have a discussion on this. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so just for the broader context, this is where, you know, if there are projects that need to happen, this is where they get listed before they happen. So it's important for us to look around in our community and say, is this something that we have in the capital facilities plan? And if not, let's make sure we get it in there, because otherwise it's not going to get noted for as a project. And I wanted to ask, this is also the Transportation Benefit District Plan. So is the list of priority projects for the Transportation Benefit District basically the transportation section of this plan?
That is correct.
So there's not a separate list for the TIB other than what's here?
That's correct.
All right, any other questions or item of discussion? All right, so let me read the resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Angeles, Washington, adopting the City Capitals Facility Plan for 2019 to 2024, which includes the City Transportation Improvement Plan for the years 2019 to 2024. Any further discussion? All right, so this will be the second reading of this.
First.
Right, this is the first reading. So the second reading of this will occur on June 5th, 2018.
And just a note for those who came late, we have presentations at 5 on this. That's why we're not asking a lot of questions right now.
All right. Well, we will move on to the application for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, for the William Shore Pool District After-School Child Care Program Facility.
Madam Mayor and Council, I will take the staff report. We're happy to present to you an application for the William Shore Pool District After School Care Program. As a community development block grant administering city, we have the ability to receive applications from eligible applicants and submit them to the state of Washington for the Community Development Block Grant Program. As part of the requirement of submitting an application, we are required to hold a public hearing, ensuring that we entertain comments from any individuals of low and moderate income so that they have an opportunity to speak relative to what this grant is going towards. We also have handouts available if anyone wants to know more details about the eligibility requirements of this program. Those are available this evening. But ultimately, we are moving forward with submitting this application with council's approval, and it will greatly benefit the William Shore Memorial Pool After School Care Program. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Council?
Madam Mayor, Steve Burke, the Executive Director of the swimming pool, is here. If he could address this and give us a short explanation of the benefits of this.
Sure.
Would you like to do that? Since he's here.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to do this application. I thank for Nathan and especially for Allison getting this together as a pool district. We have never done one of these, and it has a few hoops. And so they did a great job of navigating this. And what this is in conjunction with our pool expansion and renovation, we had seen a need, and the city partnered with us last year to address that need of providing after-school care because several of the private entities that provided after-school care had closed. And so we partnered with you and are doing an after-school care program called Spark Squad in Vern Burton, as well as in the William Shore Pool facility itself. We're currently at about 50 kids and are trying to get upwards towards about 75 after our expansion and renovation, and if we get this block grant. The pressure is still on. Bo Baggins just issued a letter
last week about closing down. And so the issue is getting worse, not better. And so that's putting a little bit more pressure to see if we can accommodate those kids. With me today, if you have very specific questions about our after-school care program, we have Jessica Compton, our aquatics manager, and Molly Barnes, who runs the Spark Squad. And you've probably seen Molly at least running around this building a little bit, along with the kids. We try to keep them out of Dan's office, but aside from that. So what this application is for is we're going to try to, when we flip the entrance to the other side of our building towards Lincoln Street, we're going to have some available space on this side that we could actually build some square footage specifically for an after-school care program. We'll probably be able to program that during the day when our kids are in school for other activities, but it will be primarily dedicated for the after-school care program. And in order for us to do that, we had to find some grant money to be able to afford to add this square footage. And we actually fit fairly well into this community development block grant competitive process. And so that's what we're doing, is we're applying for that, and all of that money goes directly towards the after-school care facility part of our project.
That's wonderful, thank you. Any more questions? Thank you so much for that, because that is, that application, I know how it can be quite onerous. Thank you to staff on that one. So let me read the resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Angeles, Washington, authorizing submission of an application for a general purpose community development block grant, the CDBG, and certifying and committing to comply with all the required regulations.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, we do.
So I move that we,
sorry.
oh, public hearing.
We need a public hearing here. So folks out there, anybody out there who would like to speak on this topic? Anybody at all interested in speaking about the pool and the CDBG grant? All right, seeing none, I guess this closes the public hearing on that. And now we vote.
Okay, so I would like to move that we pass a resolution authorizing the submission of an application for a general purpose community development block grant committed to comply with all the required regulations.
Second. So we got a motion on the table and a second. Any further discussion? Yes.
I really appreciate the hard work of the staff at the William Shore Memorial Pool and Steve and all the planning that it took to go into this. There is a community need, and the need is increasing. And we have an excellent facility, but now we have an opportunity, as we're expanding our facility, to put in this special Spark Squad, which is awesome. This pool is the heart of our community. It always has been, and it's getting better. So I am so grateful that we have an excellent staff, an excellent program, filling the needs for the community, and I heartily support this.
I was just also going to speak in favor of this. I'm really excited to see this grant coming through. I've been able to manage recently to organize after-school care for my son because we didn't need it every day, but it is a real problem for families when you find yourself offered a job but you can't find care for your children. So then you have to turn the job down, and I have been in that situation before. So anything that we can do to support anybody, particularly an organization like the William Shore Pool, to expand their capacity is something I am excited about.
I just wanted to be clear, I didn't touch on, this expansion won't be in lieu of partnering with the city with Burn. This is an addition to. It's so we can add more capacity. So we're not looking at getting rid of the partnership with the city. We're just looking at adding capacity.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just like, for parents of young children, the need in the community, especially about a year ago or so, a lot of signs were pointing to kind of a crisis. And so one of the things I was reading a blog somewhere, and they talked about how if you think something needs to happen in your community, if you think there's this big need, and you keep on thinking maybe somebody will fix it, maybe you're the one that's supposed to fix it. And so the fact that we have people like the staff at Williams Memorial, like Steve Burke, that were those people for this need is, it's just, it makes me feel great as a community member that there are people that said, you know, it's my job to fix it. So I'm very happy that the city partnered with Williams Memorial Pool. I'm very happy to see that the city is going to help facilitate this block grant so that that program can be expanded so that more kids can have good after school care. And I know Steve, I know that he thinks this is a great idea because kids learn to swim and kids won't drown. And so I'm really happy to see this partnership come through. And I'm really just, I think this is a great program. I'm really excited for that pool expansion.
All right, folks, so we've got any further discussion? We've got a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we passed the resolution, CDBG grant. Next. Okay, moving on to other considerations. So the first one is the interlocal agreement with Port Angeles School District, the Lower Owakalon Tribe, and the Peninsula College.
Madam Mayor, Council, so we're going to continue with the theme tonight of partnerships. And this is really a great night for youth and citizens of the community. Over the course of last year, I've been working very closely with the Lower Owakalon Tribe, Peninsula College, and the Port Angeles School District, joint interlocal agreement that will allow facility sharing between all 4 agencies. In the past, it has just been an agreement between the city and the school district. But moving forward, looking at kind of bigger ideas of what each agency is shooting for, we've been collaborating as a group and looking towards improving how we share resources, and I think that's really important. I couldn't have done it without Nolan Deuce, School District's facility manager, Dwayne Johnson, the athletic director, Lauren Stevens, director for the LKT, and Peninsula College Development Manager Tim Tucker. The ILA has already been approved by all 3 of those agencies. I can tell you their boards and commissions and councils were very excited about this agreement, and as well as we are. So besides facility sharing, approving the agreement tonight will also formalize our facilities committee. We can continue to work on ideas and projects that will benefit the community for years to come. And also with that also comes resources such as equipment sharing. The school district kicked out a pinch earlier this year that we were able to help out with some of our equipment. So it's all 4 agencies really working together for the common good, and it's something we're very excited about.
And I just realized, because this does include the Lower Owakalon Tribe, and since I am an employee of the Lower Owakalon Tribe, I'm going to have to recuse myself from this one, and I'm going to turn it over to our deputy mayor. Okay?
So, I guess I'll wait for Sissy to leave, and then we can find any questions for discussion. Are there any questions, or is there any discussion? Jim?
I'd just like to make a comment. Having benefited from officiating basketball in these tournaments that are discussed in this, there is a embedded economic benefit to this, and that is just in the basketball tournaments alone, Corey, as you know, the number of teams and from outside of our area that come and stay for the weekend and visit places like the Haven and so forth. So they're not only is this a great way to solidify these tournaments in the future, but we do get a real economic boost from this interlocal agreement, and so I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to expand the type of athletic events that we provide for the kids.
Yeah, I would just like to agree very vociferously with that. I think one of the advantages of this, if I'm not mistaken, is this allows us to have larger tournaments than sometimes we've had in the past.
Yeah, and in the past, it's not that we haven't been able to use different gyms. It made it very difficult difficult at times to do it just through processes. And now that we're all on the same page, that portion of it will be a lot easier. And yes, it does help us expand our tournaments. We don't want to get too big on our tournaments because we have, as Jim knows, a hard time finding officials, but.
No, I can't go back to the floor.
Yeah, so, but it does help on that economic
And
impact, absolutely.
on that economic benefit, it's, every once in a while, we'll just have a weekend out of nowhere where all of a sudden we're slammed all weekend, and then I find out 2 days later, oh, there's a basketball tournament. So it's a really, and a lot of times that happens in the off season, and I know the downtown business community of Port Angeles, that's a big deal to us. And so this is a great thing, and I love seeing that communication between all these different agencies and that level of cooperation. I think that's a really great thing for our community to start to make more of those partnerships, more of those relationships. So I'm very happy to see this.
I move to allow the city manager to sign the interlocal agreement between the city of Port Angeles School District, Laurel Column Tribe, and Peninsula College, and to also allow minor modifications to the interlocal agreement if necessary.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you.
I wish I could go back.
Thank you. All right, so the next item is the reclassification of Assistant Director of Power Systems position.
So Mayor and Council, I'll go ahead and start with this one. In our 2018 Community Work Plan, we do have an item titled Restructure the City's Electric Utility. It's actually something that we have been working on since about 2016 and considering. The objective of the work plan is to better align the organizational functions within the light utility and public works and to provide a more manageable span of control also within public works. And within public works, we have two distinctly different engineering disciplines. We have civil engineering and electrical engineering. And currently, the Deputy Director of Engineering supervises the electrical engineering department. We have been considering separating the electrical engineering from civil engineering for the following reasons. One of them is that, again, as stated, that they are two distinctly different engineering disciplines. And the best analogy I can use that I'm familiar with is like public safety. We have a fire chief and we have a police chief, and nobody would argue that they're both not public safety. But it would be like putting the police department under the fire department. And we're not proposing that, by the way. But they're completely separate disciplines, and but they're both public safety. It's also to create a more manageable span of control within public works. Right now, we have a position, it's the Deputy Director of Operations. And span of control is a very important organizational structure concept. How many direct reports you manage. And the rule of thumb is between 4 and 6. Optimal is around 4, maximum is around 6. And currently, the Deputy Director of Operations has 7. Not only does the individual have 7, there are multiple unions within that 7. It's probably, with one exception, it's one of the positions that has the most understanding control. And so we've had people in that position before. They've been unsuccessful for various reasons. The current person in that position, James, who's now our acting director, has been successful, but he can tell you it's been quite a challenge. And it would be better if there was the split to provide a better time to manage what's left, the other 6. Another one is to provide a better continuity of coverage. Right now we require, and we will continue to require by policy, that there is always somebody at the Deputy Director or Director level in Public Works available to the city here at all times. And so right now that is shared between 3 positions, the director and 2 deputy directors. And with the additional deputy director, now you'll have, instead of those 3, you'll have 4 to ensure that coverage. And during an emergency management incident, it'd even be better to have more than 1, to have a couple, but we require at least 1. And the last one is just to follow best practices. We did do research. Abby, our HR manager, called around to find out what other communities do. There are no communities in the state of Washington. In fact, I would probably say that there are very few, if any, communities even around the state or in the nation that structure the electric utility like we do. And so with this proposed restructuring, including the reclassification, the entire electric utility then would be reporting to the Deputy Director of Power Systems. It would be carved off right directly under the Director in its own discipline. One of the things that we're very pleased to tell the Council is how we're going to fund it. This is something that will cost an additional $6,800 a year, and it'll be a sustainable amount because it is increasing 1 position, and that's the annual amount of that increase. But we're going to have an overall budget savings of $99,000. And that's because we've also eliminated a position within the electric utility, the shop foreman position, that we will not be replacing, so there will be a sustainable savings of $99,000. Now, if you don't go forward, obviously that would be a little bit more than that, but we do have a sustainable savings and something else that we're accomplishing, or actually already have accomplished. So with that, since Abby's here and been waiting patiently, she can answer any questions you have about this.
Council, questions? Jim?
Have you gotten any feedback from the unions on this restructuring? Is there any plus or minuses, negatives, or positives from the union?
So this position itself is not union represented, it's a management position, so we don't have to notify that position. But we have been in contact with the IBEW union, and they are very supportive of this move. They're very supportive of being in line with the person that they're getting their direction from anyway, which is our electrical engineer, which is now going to be our deputy director of power systems, if approved tonight. So nothing but support from that group.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm highly in support of this. It's a long time coming, and so I'll give you a little history. Not only were all the direct reports going to the head of public works, but when the city owned the swimming pool, that was also under public works. Now, why would that be under public works, the city? But it was, so that's the way it was when I came on council. So the pool is operating much more successfully, independently. However, it just, coming from a corporate structure background, it never made sense to me that you put so many department heads and people under one executive. So I think this actually makes sense. The people working in the various departments have their own, can report to the head of their own department. It makes sense. I think it'll function better, and I'm really happy that we have a city manager who can look and see where a positive shift should be made and take care of this. So thank you, Mr. McKean. I think this is an excellent move.
Any other comments or questions?
I move that we approve reclassifying the Assistant Director of Power Systems to Deputy Director of Power Systems.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the table and a second. Last comment, go ahead.
Yeah, so I come from a different organizational structure of my own business, which is structured more like a dictatorship. And just kind of as a layperson getting into some of these, because I noticed this on the work plan, so I've kind of done my own study on this. This does make a lot of sense. My father's an electrical engineer that worked for municipalities, so I've had conversations with him about it, and he also mentioned that nowhere else in the state will you find this previous kind of organizational structure. So I think this is a great move. I think it's a very creative way to find room in the budget for it, and I'm very happy to support this.
Any other comments? All right, so we have the motion on the table in a second. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. All right, so we go on to the second, number 3, under I, and it is the plastic bag ordinance implementation. There's no motion for it.
Well, thank you again, Mayor and Council. So just going back a little bit, on April 3rd, the council did pass an ordinance encouraging conservation and retail bag reuse by requiring a minimum fee for carryout bags and prohibiting thin film, non-compostable plastic bags. The rollout of the ordinance has required meetings to help ensure the implementation phase of the ordinance goes as smooth as possible, and assisting local businesses to come into compliance by July 2nd when the ordinance takes effect. Since adoption, staff has received multiple questions concerning the ordinance, and we believe the best way to interpret the ordinance and answer the questions is to create and distribute a frequently asked question sheet. We did create such a sheet, and we modeled it after the City of Tacoma's Bring Your Own Bag initiative. To assist businesses, we've also assigned a staff person to this, the city's solid waste collections coordinator, to be the point of contact within the community and to assist retailers during and after the implementation phase. In addition, we will be sending out a letter and the frequently asked question sheet to the city's approximately 1,900 commercial customers. Now, not all of those will be appropriate, it's just that we have a database to ensure we cover everybody. We'll get them out to all of the commercial utility accounts. And we will also be providing information on our city's website to help both the consumers and the retailers with this. Samples of the informational materials are included in your packet, and as the mayor said, there's really no action required. We just wanted to make sure that the council approved of the process that we intend to use. And if you do, we plan on moving forward with that. And of course, we can answer any questions that you have on that.
Council, any questions?
I just have a comment. Boy, have we created a lot of confusion in Port Angeles. People don't know what's happening with the plastic bags. I get questions everywhere I go. We just had a grand opening of the STAR Super Saver. They have 9 stores and they buy supplies for 9 stores. They're not prepared for our last minute bring your own bag program. So we've confused everyone. And now this was modeled after the City of Tacoma ordinance, but I don't know why we didn't also follow the fact that they took 1 year to implement it once they voted it in. We initially had 30 days, so then it went out to 90 days, but we don't have a Department of Bags to contact everyone. We have a couple of thousand of retailers who are wondering what's going on and when, and everywhere I go I get questions. So I hope we can discuss the implementation of this, because I think we kind of rushed into this, and we really need to work this through the community without all this confusion, and allow time for staff to handle it, and for people in businesses to make choices and decisions and training and expenses, and figure out how they're going to shift their business to accommodate our requests. So I think this needs to be tightened up a little bit for the community's overall acceptance and having a smooth landing. This is kind of a rough landing.
Anybody else who would like to speak on this item?
Council, I can add one more little tidbit. I apologize that I left it out. We do have one thing going in our favor too, is that the individual that we've assigned to this, even though it's a logical assignment just on his job description, what his responsibilities are. He also has a background as a retailer actually in the grocery business. And so we've had some discussions with him, and we feel at least he'll be a really good fit to help us work with the retailers as we work through this.
He was the manager.
I guess he was the manager
That's SARS.
at SARS.
Okay. I don't have, I'm not making a motion, so let me just phrase this. I mean, what I would like to hear from everybody else about, just from an administrative standpoint, not changing the ordinance at all, but just from an administrative standpoint, moving the implementation date out 6 months. And so we would not change the ordinance in any fashion. It would not require rewriting the ordinance in any fashion. All we're doing is administratively moving it out 6 months. So again, I'm not making a motion, Madam Mayor. I'm just asking for input from the rest of the council how what you're feeling.
So just to respond to that, we did get an inquiry from Swain's. They had just purchased their half-year supply of bags. And I guess I could ask, where's that at with the process where they will get an exemption? Because there's a pretty lenient exemption clause that retailers can apply for. And so if retailers say, hey, wait, I need time to implement, I think that we would give that to them. And so, at this point, they will have 3 months to basically say, hey, we're aware of it, but we just need a little bit more time. And so can you provide some direction on where that exemption is at?
I can tell you that we have had some discussions on the subject, and it is our intent to work with the retailers, any of the retailers, if they have legitimate reasons why they need longer time to implement. It is our intent to provide them that time for implementation. And I know that's not just my feeling, but the primary backup for my position feels the same way. So.
And I believe that was the intent of council as well, to give them as much time as possible. Any other comments?
I would just, my initial reaction to seeing this is I was impressed with how professional it looked, how visually appealing it was, how thorough the frequently asked questions seemed. So I thought staff kind of did a great job. It was clear that thought was put into it, that I thought that one of the things that I appreciated the most was the second question of just kind of answering the why. And so it was nice to see staff cared about our intent and seems to have translated that in my mind, just speaking for myself, extremely well. I do want to make sure the business community, I agree on the leniency that, we want to make sure that people are capable of dealing with this change. It is a big change. But I was very impressed with the frequently asked questions and then the flyer as well. I thought that they were done extremely well.
Yes.
Just in thinking about what's been said, my concern with launch date versus being flexible is then we cause further confusion potentially. Because the intention is to be flexible, and I understand that Nathan has had conversations with Swain's about the option of an exemption for a time because they had just purchased bags. That, I feel like that captures the intention without causing more confusion, which would be my concern about pushing the date back.
And, I would just also say I have, I think exclusively positive reactions to this. I was downtown with the Downtown Association handing out some of these bags this past Saturday just for a short time. And we had multiple people say, oh, that's great. We were very happy that we were handing out plastic bags. They were happy that the city moved on this ordinance. So, I'm very open-minded if people have different feedback to provide me. But so far, the feedback that I got has been exclusively positive.
And I would second that about changing the date. I would prefer not to do that, especially because I have not gotten any feedback that it's been confusing. So I think if by changing the date, I think we would add some confusion to the issue. I have only gotten positive feedback saying it was about time, and why didn't you guys do this earlier? And finally we're moving forward. So I am surprised that folks are feeling confused, but I am very grateful for your little sheet. So I'm glad that they will be able to turn to staff and to turn to very well-written document on how to deal with the ag. So thank you to staff. I really appreciate that.
One question I don't see answered, and I believe it was from Olympic Stationaries, was large plastic bags. They sell poster board, they sell newspaper products that don't do well when they get wet. Maybe I missed that in there somewhere, how that's addressed, other than buying a thicker bag?
No, you didn't. I know there are going to be these little, what I call anomalies that come along, little things that you haven't thought about, and it's our intent to address them as they come up when people bring their concerns forward and use a common sense approach in applying it. So again, that's the intent. You're not going to be able to cover every situation that's out there. It would be very difficult to. And just a little bit on the full disclosure part of this. So there were multiple departments that were involved in the frequently asked questions sheet. And it said city manager's office. Oh, apparently we didn't answer that. I'll get to that in a minute. But I just wanted to let you know I had nothing to do with this. Staff. So in my office, it was the city clerk sitting over here that participated in that. And then we had the Community Economic Development Department. Nathan was heavily involved in it. We had, let's see, actually we had the Public Works, and again, the individual that will be responsible to be the point of contact. But even the Parks Department had involvement in it, and the administrative assistant. And where I'm going with that is we have a lot of talented people throughout the organization. And so you're going to find people occasionally involved in things in departments that normally you wouldn't think would have that responsibility, but we try to use the people throughout the organization that have those special skill sets, and we're blessed by having a lot of them. But again, I had nothing to do with it, since you said it turned out really good.
I see it in there now, that Bill handed it to you.
So we both see it now. See, I had nothing to do with it. That proves it.
When are these going, this is well done, this fact sheet, so when is it going out?
It will be mailed out after tonight. We'll come up with a time frame. It'll be fairly quick. We'll be mailing them out again. We just want to make sure the council is on board.
If you need envelope stuffers, you better call the 7 of us, because we're the ones responsible for this. So let us know if we can stuff and stamp, okay?
And also, when will that flyer be available on the website to print out? Because I tried to find it and I couldn't. I'm assuming you're just waiting for...
It's not out yet. We wanted to let council see it first and get your approval, but we'll get working on all of that soon.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, so we'll move on to number 4, which we added was the think tank items and procedure. And I very quickly put out some notes on what we talked about, and also there was a couple of items that were thought that it would be a good idea to bring up to council. So I've highlighted those in yellow, and and I'm sorry that this didn't get to you until right before this meeting. So, but I believe we spoke about the accessory dwelling units, that we were going to try to bring that whole package to council. Now, we did not talk about a date, so this was going to be probably much later in the year. So one, we need to bring it up to council to see, are we all in agreement that this needs to be discussed again? And then 2, we got to kind of work with staff and their schedule as to approximately when that could happen. So
I think the ADUs should definitely come up to council, because I have a feeling there is some low-hanging fruit where council can do things that won't require a lot of staff time, and then there will also be, if we have a public awareness campaign or something of that nature, that will, come later. But I feel like there is enough things that we can lay some groundwork.
Okay, so I guess to address this, the first item would be, one, do we have enough interest in council to address the accessory dwelling units for review and discussion?
I would like to see us look at what we talked about on Tuesday, as you highlighted here. I think considering particularly existing structures being converted and used is a nice option for us to look at supporting.
So would it be better if we do a motion on this so that way it's very clear where we're moving on this? Or are we okay with this consensus? What do you?
Make a motion.
All right, so council, I need a motion whether we address accessory dwelling units or not.
I move that we address accessory dwelling units in a council discussion at a future council meeting.
Second. All right, any discussion on this item?
Just question clarification. We do have on the books right now a ordinance addressing ADUs.
Yes.
So is this an attempt to modify that? I'm sorry, I'm just not clear.
I think in some ways it could be. So like, one of the questions is, we have fees for that process, the permitting, and in the short term, we could waive part or all of that fee to get, provide people an incentive to make those modifications, so that we can shelter people or house people.
So we would be talking about modifying the ordinance.
Potentially. I mean, I think my sense is what we're deciding is, do we want to put it on an agenda so we could discuss whether or not we want to do that?
Okay. No, I'm not, no value judgment.
Yeah,
Just a question.
Right, no, that's okay. So, any other questions? All right, so we got a motion to be able to add this to a future council agenda for the accessory dwelling units. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so this passes unanimously, so now we've got to decide when this gets brought up. Because we do need to understand what staff's schedule and whether this is, or maybe we leave it up to staff to give us a good date to bring this up.
If you give us a little bit of flexibility to say within like a 60-day period, whatever, we'll take one of the lighter agendas and add it to one of the lighter agendas, knowing what our schedule is too.
Right, and I know that we know that this is not going to happen immediately. So this should hopefully work within your schedules, but it was important.
One thing in thinking about how to look at this, given that we did just do revisions to it, is kind of like go back and say, okay, what's working, what's not working in those. And so in that sense, I'm wondering if it would be possible to get maybe, it might not be as much as like permits for ADUs that were denied. That might be too much information, but in some way understand where have people run into problems where they've tried to go forward with the project, but something hasn't worked, so that we can actually assess, did that not work for a good reason and we're glad there's no ADU there now? Or is that something that we're willing to consider, maybe we want to tweak it a little bit further?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that a little bit now. I can assure you that there have been no denials of accessory residential units. And we'd certainly be well aware of that, because we really work hard with applicants to ensure they get through the process. I think there certainly are some minor issues that people experience when they apply for an accessory residential unit. But I think more significant is just the lack of applications. In that particular category, we probably see somewhere between 7 to 10 applications at most in one annual cycle. And I think that if we're really going to address the problem, we would probably need to see a greater number of those applications.
Yeah, because I know we talked about potentially how do we get this out to the public saying, hey, we really need your help.
Yeah, that was the discussion.
Yep, so that was, so. All right, so then the second item in the think tank, we came to complete streets, and so we talked about potentially adding this to the January 2019 agenda. So I need
Council, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If I could. So because of the time frame that you identified, maybe this would be a good one to start later in 2018 when you're putting together the work plan for 2019. Because you can, with the work plan, you're identifying everything in that work plan. Also, what's identified in the work plan too, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, that it gives you, it's just a good structure since you're talking about January 2019 to bring it up during that process.
And I would agree with that, but I also wanted to make sure that it's on you guys' calendar. You know, I know that the work plan will, but if we forget to bring it up, then it's already on your work plan, that it happens in January.
I have funny feelings, there's somebody down here that won't forget it on your dais, I mean, so.
Well, I hope so too, but I know how things happen and things to get past, so.
We'll put it on our calendar.
Okay, and I guess that's, because that's something that we talked about during the think tank, we do need to make sure that all council agrees with that. So, I guess
I'll move to put complete streets ordinance to the January 2019 council agenda.
All right, and I need a second for that.
Second.
So any further discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously.
And just for context, without a complete streets ordinance, we can apply for transportation improvement board funding, which can be anywhere from $125,000 to $500,000. We'd be well positioned for some of that funding. It has very few strings. It basically can be used for transportation improvements that benefit not just cars, but also bicyclists, walkers, transit, etc. That's a complete street. It can be even used for filling sidewalk gaps, which we have plenty of in Port Angeles.
I'm not to think of where, I just watched a show the other day that explained the complete streets concept. And it would be, I'll have to find it and pass it out to council because there are multiple ways to classify a complete street as opposed to what the public may think a complete street is. So I'll try to remember where that came from because it was actually, I don't even know why I was watching the thing. It was kind of an interesting show.
All right, and the last item from the think tank was the lodging tax. I know that we talked about building a fund to grow capital projects and potentially considering it as a seed money for new projects, and also that we didn't want it to be long-term sustaining for events, and potentially coordinate with other regional L taxes, lodging taxes. So this was, we had said that we wanted to add this to a council agenda in the future. So with that, I want to know whether there is interest in adding this to an agenda for the future.
Okay, these are all topics that are discussed by the Lodging Tax Committee thoroughly each year, and the Lodging Tax Committee is made up specifically of people who are in the hotel business and different organizations who deal directly with tourism. And this is a very significant part of what the Lodging Tax Committee discusses and the merits of each. Now we have normally small startups are funded, but since it's all about bringing heads and beds. And if I come to you with a proposal that's never been done before, I can't tell you how many heads and beds it'll bring. So when you have a limited budget, you do give, in the past we've given seed money to the new startups, but not too much until they can prove that they're not going to be just a one shot and be gone next year and take our money and not produce any heads and beds. There are also some we saw tonight, the Juan de Fuca Festival, huge. It brings people in from all over the country, but they come to us and they have a need for support. They are a moneymaker. They are the bandwagon for tourism. So is the Dungeness Crab and Seafood Festival. We get the Coho loads up so many Canadians to come over to eat crab in Port Angeles that they're standing room only. And but they also come to us for some funding because the price of crab gets crazy and they need certain guarantee funds to get it off the ground. But they bring in people. I was interviewing one lady. She came from Michigan. I mean, they come from all over. So we don't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. We do want to help startups, but it's turning us into the Lodging Tax Committee. I mean, they do this. They do every one of these. That's their job. So I don't totally understand why we're doing this. When they do that, we can discuss it also. But I don't want to eclipse the people and the work of the Lodging Tax Committee. That's a good part of our system.
Right, and the idea was not to eclipse them, it was just to get some guidelines to the lodging tax, because in the past, things have gone a little haywire.
And I take your points. I think those are many good points. I certainly also think that we could easily, if we got too excited, eclipse them and take over that committee. I don't want to do that. So the one policy though that I really do think that is the one with the most need is a policy that says we need to start setting aside money for large capital projects. I'm a business owner. Marketing is a difficult thing, and a lot of the things that the LTAC does is marketing. But when you're marketing, you have to have a product, and we need to make sure that we're continually investing in our product. And one of the ways we do that is with funding capital projects with that LTAC money. So that's what I want to make sure that we're emphasizing that need to reinvest into the product.
I totally agree, but I have to say that last year our tax revenue from lodging tax was all-time high. The year before that, and I really disagree with being told that the lodging tax committee in the past has gone haywire. I totally disagree. The members of that committee are hardworking, knowledgeable. They've done excellent work, put in hours and hours of time on that. It's set up, the state gives us provisions for how it's run so the council doesn't overrun the lodging tax committee. The council has restrictions to let them do their work. The BMX, $50,000 for have you driven by the new BMX course? It looks fabulous, fabulous. It's so great. So that's $50,000 that they came and got a one-time contribution because the lodging tax committee said, I think this is the gold mine. They have potential. Let's go for it. And it's going to bring rewards in spades. And then the civic field's been getting, last year we worked so the BMX track could get $50,000. We gave $100,000 civic field, and we worked with Corey because we wanted the BMX track to succeed. So they understand that. But there's so many events. And they're working specific for shoulder events, off-season events. So they're working hard. I just want to make sure if we overstep our boundaries with the lodging tax, we're not going to get good people on the lodging tax committee and we'll shoot ourselves in the foot. So I'm just saying, we can set guidelines, but if we start doing their work, we won't have a good lodging tax committee to work, but that's my fear, so.
And, I would like to say,
I do must apologize, I shouldn't call it haywire, because it didn't go haywire. They put zero money in capital funds.
$50,000 is not zero money.
I'm not talking about that. It was before. And this is the reason why it's been a while that we've been wanting to put some guidelines from council on the lodging tax committee. So let's have other
I think
votes.
that this is absolutely excellent. Everybody here that's spoken so far has proven that we need to have a discussion about this. We're not deciding anything tonight,
Correct.
but with the passion about this subject, it has more passion than the other subjects. So I think it does need a motion that it needs to be on the agenda.
Second.
So we got a motion on the table and a second to discuss the lodging tax. So, any further discussion on having the discussion?
I just want to ask, the committee member application is still open, is that right? When does that close?
Till June 1st. Yeah. So folks, if you want to be, and you fit the criteria for the lodging tax, please apply.
Madam Mayor, if I may mention on this particular item, I think it's important for council to know that if there's a desire to have a discussion that results in any changes for the year 2019, that we do that conversation sooner rather than later, so that those that apply have a great deal of predictability and knowledge ahead of time that there might be changes coming down the road. Unless, of course, council is okay with changes being implemented in 2020, which I can see would be concerning because it's pretty far out. So I would encourage us to have that conversation in the month of June. If that is a council conversation that you all would like to have, I think June would be a valuable time frame.
I do, this question of how much to support new versus existing events. For me, I'd like to see a little bit more information for the applicant. So if it's a new event applicant, I'd like to see the application provide more instruction on how to properly estimate heads and beds, so to speak, when you don't have a previous history of events. Because there's ways to do that, but new applicants might not know how to do that. So I'd like more instruction for them. And then with regard to events that have been going on, let's say maybe 5 years or more, I feel like they should start to provide a little bit more of their business plan, financial plan, cash flow, so that we have a better understanding of whether they're relying on this fund in a way that is not supporting them becoming sustainable on their own, or if there is a more legitimate reason for continuing to come back and seek government assistance every year.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, whereas those are all great ideas, I certainly believe that what you just discussed is way beyond the purview of this council. We're not a micromanagement organization. Sure, we can discuss it, maybe offer suggestions if that's how you want to go, but to tell them that they need to do this or they need to do that, excuse me, that is micromanagement, and that's not what the city council is all about. And so if the motion is, as I understand it, and forgive me, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, so I'm having a hard time following some of this, is motion is that we talk about this some more.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the
And I don't have a problem with that, but my caution is, we can talk about it if you want, but once we start saying, okay, you need to put 30% aside for capital and this and that, now we're micromanaging this organization, and that's not our job. We're overstepping our bounds. Okay.
Well, I have a point of information. Who approves the lodging tax advisory fund distribution?
It comes to the council, we can approve it or not approve it, but we can't tear it apart, nitpick it, micromanage it, change it, and screw it up.
We have the final tools for it.
So I'm going to speak to Nathan's concern. Just to, so I do support some policy changes to the LTAC, and I think that'll be a great discussion we have at a future point. I do think that when you're talking about capital facilities, that's not a question of micromanagement, that's a question of vision. And we need to have a vision for Port Angeles that includes investing in our product, investing in the things that make those events successful. So, with what Nathan was saying, I will give a lot of credit. I do think that the certain members of the LTAC community committee, I went to, I think, all of their committee meetings last year. They worked really hard. They get really extensive packets. They have to do a lot of review. I will just speak to their defense on some of the questions that we have. I think that those are in their packets and those are things that they consider. And with their distributions they did last year, they did distribute I think what was a reasonable amount of money towards capital facilities, including like Councilwoman Kidd mentioned, Civic Field where the lefties play, where a lot of community events happen, and that BMX track. My 7-year-old son got to ride around that BMX track. He loved it. I think some of our city staff got to ride around it too, and I think they had a great time. With that in mind, I do think that committee has shown that they realize, I think, that need for investing capital facilities is necessary. I'm not interested necessarily in rushing that discussion, just because I have seen them make investments in capital facilities, but I do think in the long term, to accomplish that vision, we should have a policy where we set aside money to invest in capital facilities, and specifically in large-scale projects. That's something that, if you want to have that vision where we want to make real change to Port Angeles, there are certain things that we might need to do on a much bigger scale than a one-time $50,000 for a BMX track. That was a great proposal that was rewarded, thankfully, with help from our city staff that said, no, we'll take less money for a civic field. But if we're looking at vision, I think that we're going to need to talk about having that capital facilities fund and grow it over time so we can do large-scale projects. So I'm not interested in necessarily rushing that discussion. I think that that's a long-term discussion that we need to have. There are other little things that we can talk about. I'm interested in having that discussion, but that's my position. I don't necessarily feel the need to rush that discussion. I want to have it, but I'm perfectly content with having those decisions be 2020 rather than 2019.
So Nathan, the question is, do we have in our calendars pretty full for agenda items? Is that some items that we could sneak in there or not?
What I would suggest, and one of the good things, and Director West can speak to this even better than I can, is the fact that we've done a lot of the work already. We just need to kind of resurrect it. There's a whole program put together already on the majority of what you've already brought up. And I would say that we can look at the meetings in June, and so far they're looking pretty good as far as light meetings. I would encourage the first meeting in June.
Yeah, my thought would be similar to City Manager McKean's, in that we do perhaps a 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. work session prior to one of the June council meetings.
That would be, I think, an excellent. So, so the motion on the floor is that we discuss this, and the City Council discuss this. So, and we've got a second on that. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay, all those in favor of discussing the lodging tax at City Council agenda, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, so it's 5-2. And so, so we will discuss it. Press it forward. All right, so that's.
Procedure.
Oh, yes, you.
On the think tank. So, I think that originally we talked about the think tank being kind of that open-ended brainstorming discussion. I think that was great. And I think that the way we had the formal structure of those discussions, I think, was perfectly appropriate. But I do think that if that think tank is going to be getting into more specific topics, that the gentleman bringing up the concern about recording meetings or having a specific agenda is reasonable. I think that if we're going to be narrowing down the focus of the topics that we're discussing in the think tank, I think that we should at least consider changes in the structure.
All right, so, at this point, you've seen where they're gone and where they continue to go. It's all up to us.
That's true.
So, where would you like them to go?
Council. Just to, and I think I talked to one of you, maybe two of you, but it looks like in July, we may have to grab that one date in July and use that for priority setting. We're trying to squeeze a lot in, because of budget and some other items, we're trying to squeeze a lot in, and I think appreciating your time also, that might be we're highly suggesting we do that. We're going to have about 3 meetings just on priority setting. And they really need to be done and finalized in July, and I have some things I need to discuss with the council.
Right, so you also were talking about maybe potentially taking, wasn't it half of June's meeting?
Possibly
Right.
half of June.
So maybe because we will be taking up with other things, we'll record it, because you'll have to set it up that way anyway, right? So we'll record the next one and see how it goes, because I know it's an issue of getting the mics out and making sure that someone's here to record it and things like that. But I do know that you had mentioned that about potentially taking half of our meeting because we really needed it.
Potentially half of it, but I may take the whole thing in June. We have a lot to go over.
We'll have to discuss it. So.
I move to prioritize priorities setting.
So we have a motion on the
Can I second it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the
So we do have to-
We have discussion about that discussion first. Yeah.
All right, are you serious on that motion?
Depends if somebody seconds.
We have no second for prioritizing priority? All right.
Well, so, I mean, with the think tanks, one of my hopes is that when we get policy ideas on the table, we can talk about them in that setting so that we're not hacking out legislation in the business meeting when we already have a full agenda. And then we're able to dedicate more time to you know, kind of the work session, the think tank of how we want policy to work.
I think I just want to make sure that the public doesn't think that we're hiding those discussions. You know, and we're not trying to. But if we have detailed policy discussions, those should be recorded on the record. That's just me. So I'm fine with the format that we've taken, because when we've had things, you've brought them to council, and I think that's absolutely appropriate. I just want to at least have that discussion.
Okay. So for the next one, like I said, if we're going to have to negotiate with city manager how much of our time is going to be taken up, but it looks like, you know, we'll need some time.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's actually fine to take up a few, because we don't want to just continually generate work for us and the city staff. We want to make sure that we follow up that work and move it forward in the appropriate ways, which I, again, applaud you for doing now. That's the correct process, I think.
Okay. So I guess the results of that are that we will be recording the next think tank, because it'll involve more than just the think tank.
I do think it will be a good opportunity to see how that works. I really like the setting of not having microphones at the table and being able to just talk. I also do think, even recording aside, because it's an open public meeting, people in the back can't hear our conversation. And so there's some advantage from just people being able to follow along. There are some advantages in that regard to recording as well. I mean, to having the microphones on.
That's true.
And I'm usually able to just have an open discussion up here in the city. So if we want to record, we don't necessarily have to have different mics out at the table. I think that works great for work sessions.
Right, if that works better for everybody, I mean, it's true.
The microphones work better, that's for
They
sure.
do, they absolutely
I
do.
mean, for work sessions, I think that format works great, because we need more people at the table, because we're having that back-and-forth conversation. It's fine, but those are just.
And that sounds like it would be a really good thing for.
It certainly simplifies things for me, but
Yeah.
it's not
And
about
it's
me.
true.
If you guys want the tables, we'll put the tables down.
Yeah, no, but it's true that the mics work better, and everybody can keep them on, and it's not an issue of having 3 people on or 4 people on and making sure, yeah. So, okay. We'll try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll change it. Okay, any more on the think tank items and the procedures on it? Okay, the next one, the letter on the Hill that Puget Sound and Lindsay, first letter for staff or somebody?
Well, I'll let Nathan introduce it. It looks like he's ready to, but I just want to say, this is a late item to the council packet, so if anyone wants to see the letter, you can go to the website for the Puget Sound Partnership and look at their Puget Sound Day on the Hill for 2018, and the website is psp.wa.gov.
It's what?
Oh, psp.wa.gov.
Madam Mayor and Council, we do have copies of the letter available this evening, but we did also email those out, I believe, yesterday to the entire council to let you know that they're there would be a late item. The letter is a multi-jurisdictional letter that goes to support the continued recovery effort of Puget Sound in the Strait of Juan de Fuca. I know Councilmember Sherman Warren is well familiar with it due to his representation on the Strait Ecosystem Recovery Network. But ultimately, the letter will go to the chair of the U.S. Senate Appropriations Subcommittee, as well as the chair of the U.S. House of Representatives Appropriations Subcommittee, with the goal of continued EPA funding in the direction of Puget Sound and the Strait of Juan de Fuca recovery. And we are asking tonight for council to authorize the mayor to sign that letter.
All right, council. Any discussion on or questions on this one?
We would really like to see us support who are signing that letter.
So I will need a motion for that.
I move that we authorize the mayor of Port Angeles to sign on behalf of the city council the, can you state it again? Puget Sound.
Puget Sound recovery letter, I think, should suffice.
The Puget Sound recovery letter.
All right, so I got a motion. Do I need a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this?
I'll add, I found out about this on Friday when I was at an all-day meeting, thanks to this council assignment. Second all-day meeting in a row on Friday. Fortunately, the view is fantastic at the Jamestown Red Cedar Room. But so I apologize for the late addition to it. I found out on Friday and it's due this coming Friday, so there wasn't enough time to delay it for another council meeting. I also wanted to add that former city council member Brad Collins is actually going to attend the lobby day in Washington, D.C. For advocating for more of this funding. Basically, the federal administration has zeroed out the funds that go to recovery of Puget Sound, which includes the Strait of Juan de Fuca for this government purposes. And so this is trying to ask Congress to put more of that funding back in.
Just one point, I really would appreciate a copy on the dais if we're asked to approve anything. We really didn't get a copy. And I just think that's something we all should have. Coming? See, what we have to do is ask our staff to show.
Chair can't get things done.
I really need to glance at it before I vote, if we can just give ourselves a moment.
Two-sided? Well, you have the problem. Sorry, I didn't take one.
All right. Anyway, so we've got, yeah, we'll just take a couple minutes. To
Yeah, give us just a moment, please, for this.
Table in a second for me to sign this letter from the council. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Council. The next one, the Marine Drive Channel Bridge improvements, the grant acceptance and contract approval. Jay Moore.
Thank you. So city staff successfully obtained a federal surface transportation program grant in the amount of $510,000 with a minimum match of 13.5% for repairs on the Marine Drive Bridge. The Marine Drive Bridge is located near the McKinley Mill, just downtown under the water opposite. But the sheet piling on that bridge has failed over the years. In 2015, city staff went out there and did a temporary repair to fix the sheet piling in attempts to design and come up with a permanent solution. And this allows us that permanent solution. So, yeah, basically the Highlands and the Southers totally away that sheet piling. So what would take place out there is this grant will allow us to go out there, put in new bridge spans, do some new asphalt, and then also put in water and sewer lines under the bridge that are attached to the bridge there. So that's the plan. This grant allows us to do that, and this is a city staff spent a lot of time on this and that goes through. So we're just looking for you to approve this and we can move forward with the project.
Sounds wonderful. Any discussion?
It talks about the bridge span, new asphalt paving, new water, new sewer main crossings. Is that going to be replacement of the sheet pile walls also, or removing those?
So what it includes is removing portions of the sheet pile walls that have failed, and then where it has failed, you're removing those concrete sections as well, and reinforcing it.
So with new sheet pile or?
New sheet pile.
Okay.
And new sheet pile and new concrete for the bridge spans there, and then also new sewer and water mains under there.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Well, I want to thank staff for getting these grants. Really, really appreciate it, because this is the way we make our dollars stretch much further, and I really, really appreciate that. All right, Council, I need a motion.
I move that we accept the Federal Surface Transportation Program, or that we approve and authorize, I move that we approve and authorize the city manager to accept the Federal Surface Transportation Program grant in the amount of $510,000 for construction of Marine Drive Channel Bridge Project TR0111 and sign the local agency agreement supplement and updated project prospectus with WSDOT.
All right, I need a second for that.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, we are going to go now to amendment number 2 of the 2018 Structural Engineering Professional Services Agreement with Sargent Engineering Incorporated.
Alright, so that one as well. So city staff is recommending amendment number 2 to the 2018 Structural Engineering Service Agreement with Sargent Engineers and an amount of $54,520 be approved. This is for the H3 bridges out there working on the rails and the structural components of that. It entails Sargent Engineers and NTI, which is a local company here, to do all the construction management and reviews, inspections, all the documentation is required to make sure this is meeting these requirements. Structure for this bridge.
So, Council, any questions?
No, this looks really good. I'm happy to support this. So I move to approve and authorize the city manager to sign amendment number 2 to professional services agreement, PSA 2018-02, with Sargent Engineers Incorporated in the amount of $54,522, increasing the total contract not to exceed amount to $124,871, and to make minor modifications if necessary. The completion date of the agreement, December 31st, 2018.
You need a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve this. Any further discussion?
I think we're just going to be doing by sergeant engineers for our Christmas party.
Yes.
They do good work.
And I am
So
very,
does NTI.
Yes.
I was gonna say,
So-
I'm very grateful of the reduction of.
And I don't know, NTI is doing a large portion of that work out there as well, so, I mean, you have sergeant engineers there as well, but NTI, they've done a lot of our projects here in town, and they're very,
NTI is
very good.
super, yeah.
Right.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the table in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mayor and Council, just on a side note related to this project, I was just informed recently by our city engineer, Teresa, who's sitting on the back, that we just received our formal approval on our $350,000 grant from the state. So everything's falling into place, and it helps us stay with our timeline and
That's wonderful. That's great.
So when do we get the check?
I'm not sure exactly when, but it will be following up, so.
Let me know. Okay.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, and now we go to, I guess that's it. So we're up to council reports. So Jim, you want to start us off?
Been a busy 2 weeks, but the two highlights for me were the last Wednesday, I attended the elected officials roadmap to Washington's future, sponsored by the William Russell House Center, and it was basically a workshop, and there was at my session, there was about 12 elected officials representing Jefferson and Collin County commissioners, Jefferson County assessor, are example of some of the few that attended. I did take notes because they took our worksheets away from us. So before they did, I wrote down the question and some of the major responses. So at some time in the future, I can go through that, and then Kate and I can compare notes because I think she attended the daytime. And then I'm going to let the other people who attended this event maybe talk a little bit more about it. But I attended this Kevin Hines fair at their behavioral health, Peninsula Behavioral Health, put this on afternoon with Kevin Hines. He's the individual that jumped off the Golden State Bridge to commit suicide and lived to tell about it. And he's quite a motivational speaker. So I was impressed. There was about 500 or so people there. A great many of them were high school kids, which was really, really good to see. They were thrilled by his presentation. So I'd love to hear the other people who attended their impressions of it too. So anyway, good week. Thank you.
I don't have a ton. The really cool meeting that I attended was this morning. We had a PA board meeting, chaired by Sherry did, and we had a presentation. If you remind me what the name of the group was.
Tangram
Consulting. They were a design group from Colorado that was working on our wayfinding program that I know has been long coming. And so it was really great to see they had 5 different kind of palettes for us to look through, and we're going to do a lot more work on that in the future. But a lot of really interesting ideas coming out of that. I think we need to talk about as a council at some point. Vision kind of for our future. We're downtown to talk about that what the look is that visitors see and that our citizens see. And so it was a really good. They were extremely professional, and we had some really good conversations. I had some various conversations with them and Allison afterwards, and I'm really excited about that.
I agree that the think tank should be recorded. I mean, we could just put a tabletop mic right there. Peninsula Area Public Access could record it. There's various ways that we could make that happen. I agree that needs to happen. I'd like to see long-term in our professional service contracts, when we have the council memo, include a field for analyzing what skills we don't have in-house, thus necessitating contracting out that work. And also what fraction of a full-time equivalent employee that contract would otherwise provide for. That would then give us the ability to collect that data, and over time, we could go back and analyze it and say, yes, it does make sense for us to be contracting out, for example, for a structural engineer, or, oh wait, enough of those 0.1 FTEs add up to a full-time employee that we could have in-house and have the added benefit of that person in-house. We do have a program, as a city to buy local. Most of these professional service contracts are for people who aren't local, and we should practice what we preach if it makes financial sense for us as an institution. I went last week to a career-connected learning event. Planning manager Allison Brecky also attended, and it included a presentation by the superintendent of public instruction for Washington. And one of the things that he shared was, it was webcasted, so he wasn't here in Port Angeles. It was one of these simulcasted things throughout the state. One of the things that he shared is that in looking at what skill level of education people need in Washington into the future, about 30% of the population needs to have a degree above high school, so like a bachelor's degree or higher. And about 70% of the population needs to have some kind of training beyond high school, an associate's degree or a certificate program or something like that. And his point was 30% plus 70%, that's 100%. There's no room in the workforce of the future for people who are dropping out of high school. There's no room for people who stop at high school, really. And so that's where this new buzzword in education, which there's always a new buzzword in education, is career-connected learning, and trying to facilitate that kind of interaction so that people can figure out what skills they want and how to pursue connection into the workplace after their employment. I went to 2 meetings of the Puget Sound Partnership, and I'm thankful that the next one isn't until September. And one of those meetings, we were basically ranking these different proposed projects for restoring the Salish Sea area, and deciding whether they were a 4 or a 3 and a tiering scale. It was one of those meetings. But at the very beginning of that meeting, one of the whale researchers in the room talked about the southern resident killer whale, and talked about where it's at with its population levels. There's basically 76 individuals left. Only about 30 of those are breeding, so our breeding population. And so the researchers are estimating it's about 6 organisms away from being below a recoverable stage. So next time you see a killer whale on the ferry or something, wave goodbye, because that's basically where they're at. It's going to take a long time for them to recover. For them to, eventually die out. There'll still be transient orca whales coming through because they're along those species. But in terms of a breedable or a breeding population, there's 76, and that's 6 above what the scientists are thinking is a minimum recoverable population. So that's kind of sad. We're having a joint meeting with the county commissioners. Sorry again if I just started fire there. Here on Thursday, and that's going to be a great list of agenda items. Next week, on Tuesday the 22nd at 11:30 in this room, we're webcasting an Association of Washington Cities Municipal Finance 101 workshop. So if anyone's interested in learning more about what happens in municipal finance, that would be a good introductory location. And that evening on the 22nd, we have a work session on emergency management, which I'm really excited about. And I'll be at the Farmers Market on June 2nd for the first 2 hours. I look forward to talking to people there. Thank you.
All right. Well, I also did attend the Kevin Hines presentation at Civic Field. It was really encouraging and inspiring, and I appreciated that every speaker who spoke talked about being available for members of your community and how important it is. Ms. A.J. Teal also spoke, he's at the high school, and said it's all about coffee and tacos. He needed someone to listen, let's go have tacos. Everybody loves coffee and tacos, he said. Anyway, it was a really nice event, and I'm glad that they were able to have the daytime event so that more people were able to come and hear Kevin Hines. I did participate in the daytime, which is sort of staff-oriented roadmap for Washington's future event which was, there were probably, I'm not good at estimating people, but over 50, I would say. So I did not take copious notes because there were too many people throwing things out left and right, and thankfully they were recording it. But it was really interesting, and the focus was, it's a process that's being put together at the request of the state legislature to evaluate the efficacy of the GMA and what may or may not need to happen to that going into the future. That's the Growth Management Act. So that was really interesting to participate in. Up until recently, I was participating in quite a few Bike Everywhere Month events, but now I'm shuffling along on my crutches, so no more bike riding for a while. Also, my French and I were at the library last Thursday for, it's one of our new additions beyond the farmers market for people to come and talk to council members. It's the second Thursday of every month from 6 to 8. And we actually had some people come and talk to us. I think they were all people that we knew, but still people who had issues and wanted to talk things. And we had a nice time talking with each other too while we were waiting for people. So that was fun. That's all.
First, I want to speak about, somebody spoke earlier tonight that people are trying to run over a homeless gentleman, which I would encourage anybody to contact police if they see that. And I also want to make the public aware that in the odd hours, early morning and evening, there are individuals out there who think that either through mental health or some other reason that playing in traffic is something that we do in Port Angeles. And I know that I do want to point out that there's a gentleman in a wheelchair that people need to be extra cautious. This is a person that wheels out in front of trucks and then will not move. When you back up to go around him, he moves in front of you. One truck driver had to call the police department to get the gentleman moved out of the street. So it always creates a divide in the public when we point things out that our point of view sees, and that just makes this divide greater. When there may be a little bit more to the story, and there may be mental health issues, and I'm assuming that the gentleman in the wheelchair, that probably is the issue. And by dividing this and pointing out the worst in the community is not helpful to the community. Also, we did the farmers market. A couple people came down, had a chance to do my homework, and get that turned into sissy. It is at times difficult to get here. I realized when I took this on, it was essentially 2 Tuesdays a month and a council work session and some assigned committees. So my suggestion to anybody that's thinking about running for this, you better have time to take away from your kids' sports. You better have time to rush home from work and change your clothes. You better have time to start work early, to get done early. It is a lot more that the 7 here do than I think folks see here on Tuesday nights. I think there's a lot more that goes on behind the scene with committees, as Lindsay says, spending all day at a committee assignment that folks don't necessarily know about that we're doing. And I think, you know, everybody here should pat themselves on the back for putting in the time in their community to be able to do that. And lastly, still baseball, still hamburgers. And unfortunately, that is the And I'm going to say it, the second game, or the second time that my son has hit a home run and I've been here at City Council. So sooner or later.
Can I ask that really quick? Right now it's filing week in our county, so there's a lot of open offices for filing. It is a lot of time, it is a lot of work, but it's worth it. So get involved in your local government, file for office.
Done? Okay, Sherry?
I attended the Senior Center Council open house this morning with Councilmember Moran.
Thank you.
And we had some folks come in and chat with us, and that was excellent. And we did have an exciting PA Forward meeting. I'm looking forward to bringing to council some new concepts. We have an eclectic collection of signage around town that's been gathering for years and years, and it's time we kind of come up with a design and put some attractive signs together. I've been in several communities that really have good direction signage that's attractive and just enhances their town. So we're getting close, Well, stay tuned. It's good to hear. It's good to hear.
Thank you. So I also attended the suicide prevention, but I did the evening presentation that Kevin Hines did. It was very motivating, and it was mental health happens everywhere, and I'm sure everybody's been affected by it somehow or another through friends or family. And he did a really good job of getting that point across and to try to take the stigma out of mental health. The other thing, I attended Mike Chapman's listening tour, and that was really fascinating. Nathan did a wonderful speech there to show what the needs are and what the legislature needs to be aware of, the good points and the bad points, what's working, what's not working, and the report was there, and it was really informative to see it all there. So I was grateful for that. I know this gentleman talked about the comp plan, and I'm afraid that I don't believe our comp plan is at a B or an A level. So I'm looking forward to the Planning Commission to take a look at it so that it can get to that level. And then the last thing, I guess when you mentioned the whales, when you think that maybe we do need to have some kind of an impact on all those tankers that are proposed to come with the Kinder Morgan line and the traffic, like 400 tankers are expected daily. So we might want to do something about that in the future. All right, so that's all I've got, but City Manager, any information from us?
There's one, Mayor and Council, there is one item under information. It's an update on the cable franchise negotiations. And if you have any questions, you can get a hold of Acting Director Burke on that. But, or you could also get a hold of Attorney Bloor, who could give you a more in-depth update on that. Absent that, I have nothing else. Attorney Bloor will be talking. We will have executive session after the council meeting. So, but we have public comment first, so.
All right, and I know let's do this update on the cable franchise negotiations. I know we're getting close specifically for Papa, so I'm hoping that this, will get done by June.
We are working hard on that one, but we do have a lot of moving pieces with that. And it would be nice to segment those out, but we lose some of the leverage if we do, and that's all I can say at this time.
Right, so and as things may require more time, I wonder if there's something we can work. Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
We can talk offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. All right, so we are up to the second public comment period. Anybody in the public who would like to come speak with us, please do.
John Ralston, P.O. Box 898, Port Angeles. You had some discussion tonight about ADUs, which would include zoning, and I'm assuming whatever you get going here is going back to the Planning Commission. Reason why, in sure that many of you are aware of ADUs and why there are not many of them around town. It's a return on investment. It's not just a garage out there. It's a structure that is going to need insulation, weatherization, bathrooms, electrical, sewer, parking, life safety, and stormwater. I would say at minimum, most of the structures that you see that you think are going to be developed into ADUs are probably at minimum of a $30,000 improvement and more likely to be 60 or 70 grand. The two most recent ones in town that I'm familiar with are one that's over or near 3rd and Ennis, and another one near the locomotive up by Jefferson School. There are not that many applications for them because of the cost to make those improvements and then what one can get for rent. I'm not denying there's not a housing need. I just don't know if this is the right approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to come?
I just briefly want to comment about the guy who said that he was being harassed by people as he was walking along the street. He gave me the biggest Mother's Day hug that anybody gave me except my daughters. He is a real sweetheart. I can't tell whether or not he has mental problems, but I know he came up here because he wanted to escape the gangs in the LA area, which is where he's from. He came up here voluntarily.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Belay, P.O. Box 971, Fort Angeles, Washington. I'm with Peninsula Area Public Access, which is known as PAPA TV. I want to thank Mayor Birch and the council for having me go film Derek Kilmer with the opportunity zones. That was a very, very interesting meeting, and I think that there was a lot that was accomplished at that meeting. And I think Derek Kilmer was very impressed by the mayor, the council, the zone, everything that we talked about, and he said he's looking for more opportunity in the future to do this again. So thank you again, council and mayor, for having us do that for PAPA TV.
Thank you for doing it, and it's true, I forgot to mention that, but that was a really, it was a great tour, and so we are part of the Opportunity Zone, for investment in the future.
Ellen Fetchett, 204 Columbus Avenue. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation for all of you and what you're doing and the quality of the interactions you're having here and what I've witnessed in the think tank. I think that's exactly the way to go because all the work you're doing and the thinking that's required and learning takes a lot of time, and I also appreciate the time that you're spending. I know it's not well compensated. Many of us are finding that to be true in our regular jobs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, I did see Kevin Hines both at Civic Field and then at night, and it was different. And I was totally moved by the afternoon with the kids. That was really powerful. I thought I kept crying. And he was funny in the evening, but different, and it was a more adult conversation.
Thank you for that. Anybody else who would like to come speak to council? All right, seeing no one, I guess we're going to rise to the executive session. Mr. Lord, can you let us know why we're going to executive session?